What's up, fantasy managers? Welcome back to another episode of the First Pitch podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and I'll be your host for this edition of the pod. You can follow me on socials at Jake Crumpler and can find all of my work at crumplerbaseball.com. Let's dive into everything baseball related from Tuesday, April 14th. We'll start it off as always with the transactions, injuries, news, and notes from around the league. Kicking things off with the bad news, as outfielder Christian Yelich was placed on the 10-day IL with an adductor strain. Yelich is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, meaning he won't return until mid to late May. It's a big blow to both fantasy managers and the Brewers lineup. Expect multiple players to mix in at the DH for the Brewers, but Gary Sanchez should see most of the time there. Outfielder Greg Jones was selected from the minors in a corresponding move and will fill in off the bench in the outfield. Next, starting pitcher Nick Pivetta was placed on the 15-day IL with elbow inflammation. It's a concerning injury, as always, when pitchers have anything happening to their arms. And depending on the imaging, Pivetta could be facing a longer than minimum absence. Relief pitcher Alec Jacob was recalled for the minors, but starting pitcher Matt Waldron is expected to be activated from the 15-day IL after missing the opening of the season after undergoing hemorrhoid surgery. And he's expected to replace Pivetta in the rotation with a start on Friday. Relief pitcher Joey Gerber was placed on the 15-day IL with a finger blister. He plays for the Mets. Relief pitcher Austin Warren was recalled from the minors to replace him in the bullpen. Starting pitcher Jonathan Cannon was placed on the 15-day IL with hip inflammation, but more excitingly, starting pitcher Noah Schultz was recalled for the minors in a corresponding move to make his MLB debut versus the Rays on Tuesday. Schultz tossed 4 1/3 innings, allowing 3 hits, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned, while walking 4 and striking out 4. He induced 6 whiffs with 32% CSW across 82 pitches, and Schultz's stuff looked great with upper 90s heaters coming out of the tallest frame in the majors. Schultz is 6'10", while his cutter, sweeper, and slider all graded out as plus pitches. Unfortunately, Schultz's command was all over the place. That's why we usually avoid big league debuts, and it's always hard to judge a pitcher based off their first career start due to both nerves and adrenaline. I think we got to hold him still in fantasy as one of the top pitching prospects in baseball, but Schultz heads to Sacramento next, which is a little bit scary. However, I do like the following start versus the Nationals, and that could be when we really see Schultz's true potential. Relief pitcher Ethan Roberts was placed on the 15-day IL with an undisclosed injury. He's a reliever for the Cubs. The Cubs also optioned reliever Charlie Barnes to the minors, and then in corresponding moves, they recalled both relief pitchers Luke Little and Ryan Rollison, giving the Cubs a very lefty-heavy bullpen at the moment. And lastly, catcher Gabriel Moreno was placed on the 10-day IL with an oblique strain. He's likely to miss more than the minimum time given the type of injury. Oblique strains usually take a few weeks to recover from. It was unclear if he was going to hit the IL right away, as they didn't send him to the IL immediately as we heard the news of his injury, but Moreno out with an oblique strain. Adrian Del Castillo will shift from DH to the strong side of a catching platoon with James McCann, while Jose Fernandez could see most of the time at DH moving forward. Catcher Aramis Garcia was selected from the minors in a corresponding move and will provide additional depth at catcher to make room for him on the 40-man roster, to make room for Garcia on the 40-man roster. First baseman Pavin Smith was transferred to the 60-day IL as he's expected to undergo surgery to remove loose bodies from his elbow. In terms of transactions, starting pitcher Ryan Pepio was transferred to the 60-day IL. He's currently out with hip inflammation. Pepio now won't be eligible to return until late May, but with Joe Boyle hitting the IL last week, Jesse Schultens will remain in the rotation after shifting from the bullpen. He's expected to start today versus the White Sox. Yoendrys Gomez could also see some more bulk work for the Rays. Outfielder Rob Refsnyder was placed on the paternity list, and starting pitcher Blaise Castano was designated for assignment to make room for Patrick Wisdom, who had his contract selected from the minors. Wisdom hit 35 homers in the KBO last year, and he should be on the short side of a DH platoon for the Mariners. Forgot what team this was. Relief pitcher Griff McGarry was traded by the Phillies to the Dodgers in exchange for a player to be named later or cash considerations. McGarry was selected in the Rule 5 draft by the Nationals this past offseason, but he was returned to the Phillies. But before the season started, McGarry has a lot of upside, but he doesn't have a lot of control. Now he'll head to the reigning World Series champions, and I'm sure they'll figure out how to make him really good. Relief pitcher Mitch Ferris was optioned to the minors by the Angels, and in a corresponding move, starting pitcher Sam Aldeguerri was recalled from the minors. Aldeguerri could join the rotation with only 4 men in it right now. Outfielder Everson Pereira was activated from the 10-day IL after missing time with an ankle sprain. He should be on the short side of a right field platoon with Dustin Harris on the White Sox, and Pereira hit a homer in his return to the majors. And lastly, starting pitcher Merrill Kelly, who's been out with an intercostal nerve irritation, was activated from the 15-day IL to start in Baltimore to make his season debut. 5 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 4 walks, and 3 Ks, 11 whiffs, 24% CSW, and 86 pitches for Merrill Kelly. The feel for his changeup and curveball were lacking in this one, but I think that's something he's going to lock in as the season wears on. Kelly will get the White Sox next, so hold on tightly in fantasy. Relief pitcher Taylor Rashi was optioned to the minors in a corresponding move. Now we'll take a look at some news where we have a lot of news, so hold on tight. Second baseman Jackson Holliday was pulled off his rehab assignment due to wrist soreness. This is after he underwent surgery for a fractured hamate bone. Holliday was on a trajectory to return this week to the Orioles, but now his season debut will be pushed back at least a week, giving Jeremiah Jackson longer run at second base. Outfielder Jackson Chourio has had his return bumped back to early May. He's out with a fractured hand, and this is a setback of a couple weeks. So we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for Jackson Chourio to return to the Brewers. In other Brewers news, starting pitcher Quinn Priester, who's out with thoracic outlet syndrome, is set to begin a rehab assignment next week. So we could see Priester back on the Brewers in a couple weeks. Starting pitcher Spencer Strider will begin his rehab assignment on Thursday. He's out with an oblique strain, so we're probably about a week or two away from Strider returning to the majors. In other Braves news, catcher Sean Murphy began his rehab assignment yesterday, so he could be back as soon as next week. Murphy is recovering from hip surgery. Starting pitcher Trey Yesavage will pitch at AAA today in a rehab start. He's out with a shoulder impingement, and Yesavage is looking to cover 4 innings at around 65 pitches, so that puts him on track to return next week. Starting pitcher Matthew Boyd will make a rehab start on Thursday, and if it goes well, he will return next week to the Cubs. Boyd is out with a bicep strain. Starting pitcher Cutter Crawford has been pulled off his rehab assignment due to forearm soreness. He's recovering from wrist surgery. Fortunately, the forearm soreness won't require an MRI, and Crawford could resume his rehab assignment next week. And lastly, relief pitcher Ben Joyce, who's recovering from shoulder surgery, faced hitters for the first time since his surgery yesterday. There's still no timetable for Joyce's return, but this is a big step in the process of his recovery. Now we can take a look at our notable performances from Tuesday, a day in which we had a full slate of 15 games. We'll start it off with our hitters, leading off with outfielder Byron Buxton, who helped the Twins to win against the Red Sox, going 4 for 5 with 4 runs, 2 home runs, and 2 runs batted in. He's up to 3 homers off on the year. He got off to a slow start, but you can really see at this moment in time, like the guys who get off to a slow start, it's still so early in the season that just one game can bump your OPS, can bump your whole season up so quickly. You can go from looking like a complete bust to right back on track with what we're expecting. So Buxton, pair of home runs here. He's right back on track. Second baseman JJ Weatherholt also had a multi-homer game as he helped the Cardinals to win against the Guardians, going 2 for 4 with 2 runs, 2 home runs, and 3 runs batted in. He hit his first home run versus a major league lefty as well. Weatherholt is up to 3 homers on the season now. And our other multi-homer hitter was catcher Hunter Goodman, who did all he could, but the Rockies lost in Houston, going 2 for 5 with 2 runs, 2 home runs, and 2 runs batted in. Goodman is up to 4 homers on the year now, and it looks like he's going to at least do his best to come close to repeating last season's breakout. I feel pretty confident in that one. And lastly, we've got first baseman Jake Bauers, who did all he could, but the Brewers lost to the Blue Jays. Bauers went 1 for 4 with a run, a home run, 3 RBIs, and a walk. It was his 5th homer of the year, and it traveled 418 feet at 107 miles per hour. And I've been trying to determine if Bauers is worth rostering. Obviously, if you're just riding hot streaks, it's been smart to roster him to start the season. But is this sustainable, and is he worth holding on to, especially in leagues as shallow as 12 teams with 5 outfielders? Bowers has taken over at first base since the injury to Andrew Vaughn, but he's limited to starts against right-handed pitchers, so there's that little voice in the back of your head that says, hey, he's not going to have this role for the whole season, and he's already in a platoon. But he finds fantasy relevance with dual position eligibility in the outfield and at first base. And Bowers has made the most of the playing time he's gotten so far with 5 homers, 2 steals, and a 135 WRC plus. He's done all of this despite an abnormally low 206 BABIP, which hints at even more success on the horizon for Bowers. He hits the ball hard consistently and has a 95th percentile bat speed, which supports his power output thus far. And Bowers has made big improvements to make more contact, cutting his career strikeout rate by 9% to sit at 20% so far this year. He's chasing less while being much more aggressive on pitches in the zone. And while that hasn't led to a higher contact rate necessarily, it's allowed him to stay ahead in counts and take advantage of his raw power while also putting the ball in play early in counts to avoid the strikeouts. And I'm honestly sort of convinced that Bowers is going to be worth rostering in 5 outfielder leagues, 12 teams and deeper, at least for the next month or so, especially if you're in a daily moves league where you can bench him versus lefties. Rostered in fewer than 9% of leagues, according to Fantasy Pros, I'd buy into the early season hot streak from Bowers and then just jump ship if the strikeout rate starts to return to pre-2025 levels. But if you'd like a breakdown of other notable hitting performances from Tuesday, check out the Daily Batters Box article over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the mound and check out some notable starting pitching performances, opening with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who helped the Dodgers to win against the Mets. It was a pitcher's duel between him and Nolan McLean. Yamamoto tossed 7 2/3 innings, allowing 4 hits and 1 run, walking 1 while striking out 7. He induced 23 whiffs with 32% CSW across 104 pitches and earned the gallows pole by leading baseball with those 23 whiffs. Incredible start from Yamamoto, and he's been off to a great start this season with a 2.10 ERA and a 0.82 whip. Nolan McLean on the other side was incredible, but the Mets lost to the Dodgers. McLean tossed 7 innings, allowing 2 hits and 1 run, walking 2 while striking out 8, inducing 12 whiffs with 40% CSW across 95 pitches, and he led baseball with that 40% CSW mark, earning him the King Cole. McLean has been off to a great start this season as well with a 2.28 ERA and a 0.76 whip. And I'm pretty sure Nick is going to award him the AGA label after this start, after taking down the Dodgers. He's got a pair of easy matchups coming up next. So McLean is dope, and it feels dope to roster him. Lastly, we've got Mick Abel, who helped the Twins to a win against the Red Sox, tossing 7 shutout innings, allowing 4 hits while walking nobody and striking out 10. He induced 15 whiffs with 39% CSW across 90 pitches, and our streamer of the day came through big time. After struggling in his first 2 appearances, Abel has locked in to display his true potential. Abel's first 2 appearances came under weird circumstances, as he was used in relief of Bailey Ober in his first outing and then had to pitch in freezing temperatures with some snow in his second outing and got trounced. He looked much more like the top prospect pitcher we hyped up in spring when he shut out the Tigers for 6 innings last time out, and then took on an even more daunting lineup yesterday and looked even better with 7 shutout innings and double-digit strikeouts. Abel's 4-seamer is his main weapon, as it sits 95 miles per hour with 16 to 17 inches of induced vertical break. Abel gets the most out of his heater, throwing it with nearly 7 feet of extension with a flat approach angle, so that pitch has got to look really fast coming up on hitters. He does a great job of avoiding the heart of the plate with the pitch and getting it upstairs, allowing him to induce a bunch of whiffs. He had 7 whiffs on Tuesday with 43% CSW, and while his slider command wasn't spectacular yesterday, it did avoid damage and return a pair of whiffs, but his feel for his changeup was exceptional, and it allowed Abel to excel, inducing 4 whiffs with 47% CSW while returning 80% strikes. Abel mixed in curveballs and sweepers as well, with the former performing much better than the latter. And you can sort of see how this whole arsenal comes together pretty nicely. Command of a great fastball supported by a plethora of secondaries that he controls relatively well. Abel's still trying to figure out his secondaries versus righties, as we've seen him favor the sweeper or the slider from start to start, but the fastball changeup combo is legit, and he has enough weapons and good enough command to outpitch his deficiencies against righties at the moment. Abel gets the Mets and Queens next, but I think he's somebody who needs to be rostered universally after his last 2 starts. But if you like a breakdown of every single start from Tuesday, give the Plus Pitch podcast a listen and check out Nick's daily SP roundup over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the bullpen and check out the relievers that got saves and the closers that pitched outside of save situations or blew their saves. Starting with the former, Emilio Pagan pitched a perfect ninth for his fifth save. Paul Sewald recorded his MLB leading sixth save with a perfect ninth. He's rostered in I think very low amount of Yahoo leagues. Definitely go out and pick up Paul Sewald. He needs to be rostered everywhere. Kenley Jansen pitched a scoreless ninth for his third save. Gus Varlin recorded his second save with a scoreless ninth, and Clayton Beeter recorded 2 outs in the eighth. It's possible that Clayton Beeter is like a high leverage reliever where they just use him where he's best deployed, or maybe it's a platoon situation between him and Varlin, or maybe Varlin's just taken over the closer role for the Nationals. Varlin is much safer than Beeter, while Beeter has a lot more potential with strikeouts. He just struggles with the free pass. Right now, I'd be keeping an eye on this situation, but if you're desperate for saves, go pick up Gus Varland. Raisel Iglesias pitched a perfect ninth for his second save. Brian Baker got the final out of the game for his third save after Yoendrys Gomez worked into trouble. And Yel De Los Santos recorded the final out of the game for his first save after Brian King worked into trouble attempting a 5-out save. And Brian Abreu has struggled early on, and the Astros are trying to piece together the late inning, so it could be a closer platoon right now, closer committee with De Los Santos, Brian King, and Brian Abreu. Mason Miller pitched a perfect ninth for his fifth save. Mark Leiter Jr. recorded his second save with a perfect ninth. It looks like he's got the leg up on the closer role for the A's. And lastly, Alex Vesia struck out the side in order for his second save. Edwin Diaz, for some reason, threw a bullpen session earlier on Tuesday, so he was unavailable. I'm not really sure what's going on with him. His velocity's down, but I think the Dodgers are just going to try to make this work to make sure that BS is not only healthy, but also successful and also ready for the postseason, because, the Dodgers are going to make it there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Alex Vesia and Tanner Scott vulture a few saves over the next couple of weeks. In terms of closers to pitch outside of save situations or below their saves, Ryan Walker pitched a perfect eighth, down by 1. Pete Fairbanks allowed 3 runs, pitching the eighth up by 2 to blow his first save and take his first loss. I don't know if the Marlins were trying to push him for a 6-out save, but definitely weird usage there. Aroldis Chapman struck out the side in order, pitching the eighth, down by 6. He hadn't pitched since last Tuesday, so this was a maintenance outing. Trevor McGill allowed 3 runs, pitching the ninth up by 1 to blow his first save. The Brewers would go on to lose in 10 innings. Jeff Hoffman was handed the new 2-run lead after McGill blew his save, and then Hoffman proceeded to allow 2 runs to blow his own save, his third of the year, but the Blue Jays would still win in 10 innings. Cade Smith allowed an unearned run, pitching the ninth up by 1 to blow his second save of the season. The Guardians would lose in 10 innings. And Riley O'Brien pitched a perfect 10th and earned his second win when the Cardinals walked it off in the bottom half. But if you'd like more information on relief pitchers, check out Rick Graham's daily articles over on pitcherlist.com. And before we look forward to today's games, we're going to take a quick break. Now we'll look forward to Wednesday, April 15th, a day in which we'll have a full slate of 15 games. My matchup of the day is Shota Imanaga versus Jesus Luzardo, a pair of dope southpaws squaring off against each other. This should be a fun matchup to watch. In terms of probable starters, we've got 5 guys in the auto starts tier, including Imanaga and Luzardo. We've also got Shohei Ohtani versus the Mets, Kyle Bradish versus the Diamondbacks, and Dylan Cease in Milwaukee. Our probably starts tier has 4 guys, and that's where we'll find our streamer of the day in Spencer Arrighetti versus the Rockies. This should be a still ill, as Arrighetti is coming off the IL, but I think he worked up to over 80 pitches in his last outing in the minors, and he gets probably the easiest matchup in baseball with the Rockies on the road. Arrighetti is also somebody who has shown potential in the past. It's just about him throwing strikes, so we'll see how he does against the Rockies, but he's our streamer of the day, and I'd be picking him up everywhere. I'd also keep an eye out for Sean Burke versus the Rays. He's in the questionable starts tier, but I sort of like Sean Burke. His fastball is very interesting with 18 and 19 inches of vert, and he's got a pair of breakers to support it as well. I think he should do well against a pretty weak Rays lineup. I like Sean Burke for the season overall, though he's more of a deeper league option. In terms of hitter suggestions, I target Giants and Reds hitters in Great American Ballpark. It's one of the best hitters parks in baseball. And we'll see Tyler Mahle squaring off against his former team versus Rhett Lauder. So you'll want some left-handed hitting Giants and Reds batters. I'd also target Angels and Yankees hitters in Yankee Stadium. We've seen a lot of balls leaving the yard in the first 2 games of the series, and we've got Jack Kochanowicz versus Luis Gil in this one. Neither of these guys are spectacular. Both of them can have success, but I could also see the Angels and Yankees making this a slugfest. And lastly, I'd target Rangers and A's hitters in Sutter Health Park, one of the better hitters parks in baseball. We've got Kumar Rocker squaring off against JT Ginn, so not like an ace versus an ace here. I think we could see a slugfest in Sacramento as well. Now we'll close things out with our relievers to watch. We got just one. Cade Smith has pitched on back-to-back days, so target Hunter Gaddis for a vulture save on Wednesday. But that'll do it for today's episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord and to support the Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on socials at Jake Crumpler. Tune into YouTube tomorrow and every day for a new installment of the podcast. And make sure to enjoy the day as we are blessed with another day of baseball.